Today, I have with me the Cannon, the Hat, and I am the Monopoly Man, because today we're talking about money. As always, joining me, John and Gretchen. Today, I'm hosting. I just have a slideshow about money, because I listen to too many podcasts and watch too many videos and just, I don't know. And then you see people make bad money decisions, and also you just look at the whole financial industry and you go, how do any of these people have jobs? And it makes you think. So I also just kind of enjoy talking about money. I've always been a fan of the econ strats in video games, saving up the money, paying out later, gives me the big dopamine hits. So today we're talking about money.
I just want to point out that this guy's paying $800 for rent. Excuse me?
Hey, this is an old meme, man. This is no longer a recent meme.
Yeah.
This is at least 5 years old, probably more. I don't remember.
Even still, 5 years
Well,
ago.
hey man, look, I'm not gonna say anything, but you'll see when we go over my example budget, because it's just my budget of I get to cheat the system because I have generous parents. So I'm not gonna call out $800 rent. It's just there for the meme.
I'm not calling it out like
36.
it's his fault.
Yeah.
Dang, where does he live? Probably somewhere that's not
I was gonna
California.
say, and literally anywhere that is not a big major city, probably.
Yeah.
And you can totally get that. The problem is having a job in that same area.
For us, switch the rent and the candles, and that's about more accurate.
Yeah.
They'll get you 5 candles.
But this is obviously an old meme. If you haven't seen it, it's just a classic meme of... I don't know if it was just meant to be rage bait or what, but this person just put out their... there's no way this budget is real. Someone who is good at the economy, please help me budget this. My family is dying. Spend less on candles. No. So I feel like it has to be rage bait.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anywho, next slide. Yeet. Alright, legally required disclaimer stuff, because this stuff is actually pretty touchy. But this is not financial advice. The information provided is for educational and informative purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. I am not a licensed financial advisor. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. I'm not a legally trained advisor of money in any way, shape, or form. I mean, just look at me. Do I look like a money advisor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why would you say that? I feel insulted, honestly.
You said you're the Monopoly Man. So.
I did say I was the Monopoly Man. I do love me some capitalism sometimes. Anyways, everyone has different circumstances around their financial situation and must adapt plans accordingly. As you'll note, my plans are very lucky, and they do not fit many other people's plans. Yeah, as you can see, I've said here, my expenses are reduced immensely, and I do mean immensely. I am very aware that the real costs of compared to my costs are nowhere near real. Anyways, pop quiz, why did I have the disclaimer on this stupid podcast episode that will probably only get 1 view?
Legal
reasons.
Yeah, but a little more specific.
We don't want to get sued.
A little more specific, maybe? I'll give you a half point, because I guess you tried.
In case one guy is like, I'm going to go do this, and then kills himself.
Instructions not clear.
I'll just say that, as an example, Red Bull got sued for their thing being Red Bull gives you wings without multiple eyes, and had to change it because they got sued for millions of dollars over it, and they just rather would settle and change their slogan than actually do it. So if that tells you anything about how fucked our legal system is. So yeah, that's why the legal system's fucky wucky, and I'd rather be cautious than not. It's not that hard to put a disclaimer in. Your hand is raised. What's going on?
That just reminded me of something I heard in a sports podcast today about the World Cup, since FIFA doesn't allow...
Oh yeah, I'm aware. I think I know what you're about to say.
If you're not directly sponsoring the World Cup or something, you're not allowed to have your company name on things.
Uh-huh.
So any stadiums that were named after companies that weren't directly sponsoring the World Cup, they had to cover the name.
Mm-hmm.
In LA, it was just called Los Angeles Stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Actually,
but some brands got creative.
Oh my god.
And had their own workarounds. I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember where it is, but I think it's Gillette Stadium. they had to cover up the name on the front,
Mm-hmm.
but they covered it up with like something that looked like shaving
A
cream.
Gillette razor or something, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
all the seats looked like razors. I heard that, I think it was Levi Stadium, they had like trucks driving around that said like nothing to see here. And they like, what was it exactly? They had like nothing on the stadium, but like trucks driving around the immediate area. It was like, we're not, it's not connected to the stadium. We're not advertised. Don't look at us. And like Heinz ketchup.
Yeah?
They had to
What'd
like
they do?
censor all of any signs for ketchup in the stadiums.
Okay.
And so, I think it was Levi and Heinz ketchup on all their social medias. They made like the censored out logo, their brand, their like profile picture on everything.
Yeah,
Just to
okay.
be
That's
hey,
clever.
this is the.
Imagine being so dedicated to the bit, so desperate for it, and it'll probably get censored by most broadcasters anyways. But that's crazy. I mean, I almost just applaud that level of dedication, but I can't because people be doing some crazy things for stuff like that, but like in more heinous ways. That's pretty tame. Like, yeah, okay. I get why that we have to censor it because like World Cup's not associated, it's around the world, and they want to do it, and it's not affiliated, and they're not the sponsorship is not paying for the World Cup to be there, and like yada yada. Like that, I understand why that's a thing, and I understand why they're trying to get around it. Incentives very clearly state that like, hey, World Cup, lots of viewership, would like to see eyeballs on my brand. I think it's probably a waste of money to some degree, but
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
I also heard that a lot of Airbnb people were trying to hike up their prices
Well, yeah,
on like World Cup days, and they were
easy,
like,
yeah, duh.
I'm only charging 3 times the normal rent. Why is no one renting from me?
I mean,
I'm charging over $1,000 for one night. Why is no one renting from me?
yeah, it's supply and demand, baby. I mean, that's why scalping exists.
Yeah.
It's just how it works, unfortunately. And the only solution is to just refuse because you refuse to pay that much money for something like that. Which, you know, some people got more money to work with, so they just will buy it anyways, unfortunately. Anyways, bit of a related tidbit that was related to financial stuff that pisses me off with the FIFA thing is that, did you hear about the FIFA, was it president or whatever, trying to sell a stake in the split off company that is like part of FIFA because you can't sell the FIFA organization because it's specifically explicitly stated that you cannot have like it be sold like stake sold. It is just for the promotion of the sport of soccer, and you cannot do anything trying to make money off of it. So they made a subsidiary company that's like FIEEF or something, that's like a subsidiary company of FIFA, and the guy was trying to sell stake in that and getting huge backlash. I believe the UK and like several other European Union countries are like boycotting FIFA as a result of it because they're like, no, we see what you're doing here. We see your financial engineering bullshit. No. But yeah, that's a whole thing. We'll see how that actually goes down. I mean, we are living in some heinous financial times. Some people call it financial engineering. I call it fucking terminology bullshitting, because that's what it fucking is. Buy now, pay later is debt. By the way, that is just the definition of debt. Why are they allowed to get around legal rulings around debt by calling it buy now, pay later? That makes no sense. If we had any reasonable fucking legal system around this shit, it would just not it sucks because the problem with the legal system is that it has to be letter of the law. Otherwise, you just get wildly different interpretations of it, of the spirit of the law. But, like, so much of the time, spirit of the law is just what you need, and letter of the law just fix it because you can do weird bullshit like this. But anywho, that's the whole side tangent.
We just need a Boros Inquisition, okay?
We kind of do need a Boros Inquisition, man. Alright, anywho. So, I'm gonna give a quarter point to Gretchen and a half point to John. You both tried.
Yay.
John tried a little harder, but not that much harder. But we'll leave it at 0.25 to 0.5 right now. All right.
That's all that matters.
But yeah, just because things can be weird with the legal system. Don't want to risk it. Here's my credentials. Don't have any. I'm a guy on the internet. Why did it go back? What happened? What? I have no idea what
Did you
just...
push like a side button or something?
I don't know, maybe, but then when I moved the mouse, it came back to this, so I don't know what happened. I didn't click, it just came back to it. Anyway, this is my certificate of bullshit presented to me
valid.
for literally
There's
nothing.
No signature on it.
I don't need it. That's why it's a certificate of bullshit. Anyways, I don't have any, so take all my shit with a grain of salt. I just watch too much financial content from various different opinions, such groups as sides. So that's why I like kind of grouped together all the reasonable stuff, because like I listen to the bullshit just to like hear them out, and then I process it and I get other people's opinions and just what I see in the world, and then I repeat the stuff that I think is real. And yeah, I'm not sponsored or anything. We have like 0 to 1 viewers. Yeah, so I don't have a reason to bullshit you. And I mean, you can debate whether or not I have a correct grip on the world that we live in, but I would like to think I have a decent one. Granted, I am in a very privileged position. There we go. Some money basics.
Imagine having privilege.
Yeah, truly. Debt is bad. I know, this may be shocking to you. I hate to tell you, but debt is like really, really bad. So the first step is, if you have debt, pay that off first. Like, make a concerted effort to like, you will kind of be in suffering because you will not, like, you will be better off not purchasing some things for yourself unless you absolutely need to for your sanity, and like you're literally going to kill yourself otherwise.
Yeah, every time.
And you just better off paying it off quickly as fast as possible, because you are effectively, for every amount of time that you have debt, you are just paying extra. Credit card debt, also bad, because if you don't, basically when you use a credit card, if you don't pay it off immediately, it racks up interest. So if you're not paying it on your like monthly due date or whatever, that, fun fact, the interest rate is actually calculated daily. So it does compound, and, you know, depending on how much you spend on your credit card, not that much, but, like, it will, they track it daily. So, like, it does get incrementally larger daily, but I think it's, like, if you pay it on time, like your monthly due fees or whatever, then the interest doesn't actually accrue. But, like, they will calculate it daily. The percentage, I believe, is, like, yearly based, so you divide it by 365, and then, like, that's the interest per day, and it does that per day. So yeah, that's why you want to be really careful with credit card stuff, and generally speaking, if you're not paying it off, unless you literally need to in order to like pay for food that you need to survive, or just any other, you know, literal living essentials, you should not be using the credit card more than you can pay off immediately. Very important, because credit card interest rates are high. Interest percentage is important for the exact reasons I just stated. And then this is the thing that I'd like to harp on, because I feel like probably not enough people do this. Maybe a lot of people do this. I don't actually know this for certain. But keeping track of everything that you're spending on is like one of the most important things. Like, just that, it allows you, if you don't know how much you're spending on certain things, you can't know if you're getting ripped off or not, right? So it's important to like write this down and keep track of it. And I'll show with my example exactly what I do. But yeah, if you learn nothing else from this, because everything else in here is kind of like a grain of salt, but I think this is like, I can confidently say, you should be writing down everything you're spending money on, period. And lastly, shortcuts are scams. Anybody who's telling you about get-rich-quick schemes or just try this one trick or any of that BS or cryptocurrency, or that kind of stuff that's like, it's gonna go to the moon, that kind of deal, it's not real, it's gambling, you are just gambling, don't lie to yourself, don't gamble. Is bad. I say this as a freaking gacha game player, okay? You'll see that later. Don't do it. Can't stress that enough. It will ruin your life. What's that?
Many years ago, I had a coworker come up to me just randomly out of the blue and was like, Gretchen, help, I spent $100 on Bitcoin, but now it's not worth anything. And I'm like,
should have spent $100 on Bitcoin.
I don't know what you expect me to do about it. That sucks.
Diamond hands.
I guess.
It'll rise again.
It'll rise again.
Just
but yeah.
like that, I'm not gonna say that.
And like, just generally speaking, with anything related to the stock market or financial stuff, that's always, you're kind of gambling unless you're in it for the long term, which we'll go over later. But just be very careful with that stuff and realize that you are gambling if you're trying to do short-term stuff or any kind of like to the moon stuff. All right, so here's my example budget. This is real for me. I get approximately $1,550 per pay period. That is every 2 weeks of gross income. This is before taxes. Taxes take out about $255 per pay period. That leaves me, and then my benefits per pay period cost roughly $95. I have like all the cheapest insurances. So I've got like the cheap medical insurance, the cheap vision insurance, and the cheap dental insurance. So that is why that is like a relatively low amount, I believe. But that basically leaves me over with $1,200 per 2 weeks per pay period, aka. And that I like to break it down to per week because I find it easier for me to budget out per week as opposed to every 2 weeks. Some people get paid twice a month as opposed to every 2 weeks. There is a slight difference there. There is mostly because there's a little more than 2 weeks in every month aside from February. And even on a leap year, February has one more day than 4 weeks. But anywho, I just like breaking it up into weeks. I got very lucky here with the numbers coming out very nice and pretty like this. Your numbers will probably not be this pretty. I got stupidly lucky to have these numbers be so exact like this. Everything is not, these numbers are like, I rounded a little bit, but every rounding thing is the expenses I round up and my stuff that I get, I round down. So I will never err on the side of excess costs. I will always err on the side of excess, having leftover money around. It's just good principle. That way you're not realizing, oh shoot, I was actually have less money than I realized. If anything, it's like finding a $20 bill in your clothing. Like, oh, I have more money than I thought. Sick, right? That's always the situation you want to be in. You never want to be in, oh shoot, I have less money than I thought. That's a bad place to be in. But anywho, so that's our 100% starting value, 600. Oh no, now I gotta go back. It's fine. So 100% of my budget, because I don't even pretend like this. I pretend like these taxes and benefits don't even exist. They are just must-haves. You must pay taxes. You must have insurance. It's just, it is bad to not have those. And not just bad, like very bad. Anywho, so here are my static costs. So this is about 43% of my budget. These are things that are just regularly I have to spend money on. These are fairly-ish realistic. I spend a fair bit. I go to a relatively expensive gym, so this is definitely probably more expensive than you'd like. And I'm probably going to change gyms when the year rolls around, because if I can find a cheaper gym that I can go to that's on the way home, I will probably take it up because I pretty much just use the weights. But this is good, and I consider this actually decently well spent money because mental health and physical health are very well correlated, and there's just been study after study showing that it's good to stay in shape, both for mental well-being and for physical well-being, and I think it's very important. And I just also enjoy the gym a fair bit. Now, my internet bill. This is actually fairly realistic. I get better internet for the buck because I'm splitting it with my parents. But this is fairly realistic because I'm splitting it 50-50. So you could, but I also have like a higher tier internet than I really need. And I'm thinking about lowering that as well. Because I get a gigabit of fiber. But they've been raising the prices too. So I'm like, I don't really need a gigabit. I'm thinking about figuring out how to contact them, which is going to be a pain in the butt, because ISPs are assholes, if you didn't know already. But I'm sure you already know it if you've ever dealt with ISPs before, aka internet service providers. Now, you'll also note that my rent is very subsidized as well. Even though it is a large portion of my budget, it is way lower than it realistically should be because I live with my parents, and they only have this in place so that I must have a job. This is about 21% of my budget, roughly. My internet's about 2% and my gym's about 8%. But realistically, your rent's probably going to be higher, especially with how things are, if you live in a city or depending on where you are. My gas is not that subsidized, but I also don't go out a lot and I have a short commute. So that is also probably lower than you might expect. But if you got like an electric car, it might be higher than you'd expect. Because if you got an electric car or a really good hybrid, especially nowadays, that you might not be spending that much on gasoline. However, it might increase your electricity bills, which I don't list my utilities because I am not paying the utilities. The only utility I'm lucky enough to where, with my, like I said, generous parents, so I have low rent, and the only utility I pay is internet. And then food, again, this is super heavily subsidized. What?
For electric/hybrid vehicles.
Yes.
First of all, depending on where you get your electricity, they might have like a special plan if you can prove that you have a hybrid or electric vehicle.
Okay.
Second of all, it costs pennies to charge a vehicle.
Oh, really? Okay.
I did this research when we were deciding whether Van could charge his car here or not.
Okay.
It's like you will not notice it.
Okay, cool. So that's actually awesome. So that means basically you will have not necessarily non-existent gas prices, but actually less than me. I just do it out at $35 a week. I started this originally higher just to be safe, but then I more accurately assessed how much it was costing me per week. And again, my food is heavily subsidized because my parents buy a lot of groceries and stuff, and I often am snacking on leftovers from the fridge and stuff, and they allow it. So, again, a lot of this is heavily subsidized. Your percentages are going to have to fluctuate. You'll notice that this is only 40%, 3% of my costs, and this is probably going to be a lot higher for a lot of people. But that's kind of my breakdown of this is stuff that I can't really change. You know, I'm kind of locked in on this stuff unless I make a definitive change. It's not going to change week to week, right? Typically speaking. All right. Part 2, 1.5, that gas and food budget, I have a buffer fund because I don't spend, because this is a highly variable cost, right? I'm not spending exactly $35 each week exactly, so I keep track of okay, I've given myself this budget, $35 this week, and then it'll be $70 next week, and then when I spend down, I will subtract that amount from this section that I have. That way I'm keeping track of it, and then if I have any excess left over, I'll talk about this later, but I will throw that into other categories in a certain manner of fashion that I prefer. But then I also keep track of my company occasionally allows me to pay to work overtime, and any extra money earned from that typically gets split 50-50 between savings and just fun stuff for me. And this is just, I was looking up buffer and trying to find a good image, money bag, and this image came up, and so I thought it'd be a funny image of just old art guy having money bag and just looking questionably off camera. I don't know what he's looking at, but it came up on Google Images and I thought it was funny. So that's for your enjoyment. All right, part 2 of the real one. This is safety funds. My whole thing is I don't touch it. I pretend like I don't have this money because this is investing in your future, which you really should do. And you'll notice it's a whopping 50% of my budget. That is because the first and most important thing you should do is invest in yourself, whether that is through education or through just safety funds, and we'll go over that right now. But basically, I'm censoring the exact amounts that I have just because I don't know if I feel comfortable sharing the exact amounts I have in each of these particularly, but I will tell you the rate at which I put them in. So $100 a week, about 16 is 1/8. It goes into investment. Wait, was it 1/8 or 1/6? Maybe 1/6. 1/6 goes into investment, and I keep track of because what amount I have in 401k separate from what I have in a investment account, because they are separate and the rules for pulling them out differ. Special note, and this is not uncommon for a lot of companies, but they will match. A lot of them will match us up to a certain percentage of your pay, 100%, and then 50%. It varies from company to company. Some of them match 100% up to 5%, or 50% for the 5% all the way. It just depends on what company you work at, and you should really look into this. If your company has any of these benefits, you should absolutely take full advantage of them because you are essentially getting free money. They are paying you extra money to invest. Just absolutely pay into this. But yeah, I tried to do a calculation, but this I think is off because when I looked at what they put into my account on the pay period, I was a little confused because it was a slightly different value. But you should try and calculate it and also just see what it ends up being for what they put in. Oh, that must have been what happened. I must have scroll wheeled. Anywho, rainy day fund.
50% of the next 2%, wouldn't the total be 4%?
Sorry, which one?
If it's 100% of 3 and 50% of 2, wouldn't the total be 4%?
This is total of 5% matched at some level. The 2% is only at 50%. So yes, it's a 4% of my pay, but I'm just noting that I can get up to 5. I can take a portion of up to 5% of my paycheck, and because the amount that you put in is still 5%. The amount they match is 4%. Of the pay, because this is what they match. Okay. You have to put in that amount yourself from your paycheck for them to match that. That's why the amount I'm taking out of my budget is 5%, right, of my pay.
Okay, yeah.
And then the amount they'll put in is 4%, right? Gotcha. But anyhow, that's side tangent. And then rainy day fund, you should have this. You should absolutely have an amount of money that you have set aside for in case of emergency, or even just for stuff that is not a regular occurrence, like you probably don't buy clothes on a regular interval, but you just, every once in a while you might need clothes or laundry or detergent or whatever. This is just a separate fund. You want to keep this as high as possible because accidents freaking happen. It sucks, but this is very important to have. They call it a rainy day fund. And this is funds that are not invested. They're not set aside for spending. They're funds you just don't touch. And if an accident or something happens, you can use that and not go into debt. Very important. And then I have also what I've set aside is a classes fund because I would like to take classes, potentially looking at a master's in the future. And so this is money that I set aside for that in the future. The saying invest in yourself first is very true. I know degrees aren't as valuable as they used to be back in the day, but they are still very valuable and still very important. All right. Now for the fun part. My favorite part. The part I look forward to updating every week at the end of work is the fun funds. So I've given myself the ability to where if I have extra money sitting around, now I rarely do this, but if I have an excess amount of money in the fun funds, you can move them to the safe funds, but you never move the safe funds to the fun funds. That is just, don't do it. It's bad practice, and then you start to get into, but I could move stuff over, and you just start thinking about it, and you don't want to be thinking about it. You want to think about this as little as possible when it comes to investing stuff. So I have a little side hustle / hobby that I enjoy called making content. I set aside $10 a week for that. And I have a little list of things that I might get in the future. I might need a new headset. I might commission a social media banner page. I just recently commissioned an OC that's in progress for it because right now my profile icon is nothing. And I have an entertainment budget. So that was one very small percentage for the content fund. Something I do for myself. You don't have to do this if you don't have like a side hobby specifically that you want to set aside that's like a side hustle that's separate from just general entertainment. But then my entertainment budget, this is just fun stuff like that I would like, whether it's figures or just video games or whatever. I set aside $25 a week. And I've got a list of, again, things I might buy in the future or potential future expenses that I'm thinking about getting in the future. Doro is a Nikkei thing. Don't worry about it. A physical copy of Mage and Demon Queen, which is a webtoon series. I might get a Nendoroid, and then there's going to be some tax and tariff on an earbud that I already paid the earbuds for, but they don't charge the tax or tariff on it until it actually ships. And that entertainment budget totals out to, at $25 a week, for a little over 4%. And then I have snacks fund. This is for cookies, treats, food. I just keep it all separate that way, and again, we're keeping track of the exact amounts. I feel fine letting you know that these are the current amounts that I have in each of the categories. I just recently spent in the content fund, so there's only $10 in there. I've got $262 sitting aside in the entertainment budget if I want to go bowling with friends, or if I want to get a new video game, and then snacks is, cookies like I mentioned or whatever, right? This totals out to, I think it was like 8% or something. Not a whole lot. I do tend to be pretty on the saver side. All right, pop quiz. Why is that bad?
You spend more money.
Yes, but we talked about this. How it works?
Interest.
Yes. Okay.
And also, you can forget about it and then end up spending more money, and it's just a whole thing.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll give the point to John. I probably should have had raise hands or something, but. Because Gretchen will never be the person to first, jump at something. She'll just sit there and wait, and if nobody else answers, then maybe she'll say something if I don't go to raising hands. If she's not given express permission to suggest something, she will just sit there. Alright, but that is point to John. What's that?
Also really tired.
Oh, understandable. She did work today.
It's 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, so that is also true. So we're going to move to raising hands in the future. But John did get it correct. You are effectively paying whatever the interest rate is on your debt at all times. Like that cookie, 1% more expensive. That cookie, 5% more expensive, 10% more expensive. Whatever it is, usually I think it's, depending on the kind of debt, it's anywhere from 2 to 30%, depending on the kind of debt. But yeah. Yes, John, question.
And a side note for here. So as we've inherited this building, we've also inherited the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And mortgage is basically just big debt.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So we have a monthly payment on it.
Yeah.
And we're paying currently the ratio is we're paying like 60% of that payment
goes
is
to
just interest.
Is this interest? Yes.
And then the 40%
yes.
is the actual.
That is why debt bad.
And it's like
because it do that. It very much do that.
And I keep being like, man, I really want to, increase the ratio a bit here.
Yeah,
but then we also don't make that much and have a lot of repairs that need to be made. So
yeah, well, and the thing is too, that's why it's important to, if they usually with things like that, with mortgages and car payments or whatever, they will have a minimum required payment and they will have a maximum required payment. Not all of them. Some of them will just let you pay it off immediately if you suddenly, have a windfall and can pay it all off. But usually that's not the case for these large debts. And generally speaking, there's a maximum payment that you can put. If it's within reason, you should absolutely be trying to hit that maximum payment because it will mean the debt is paid off faster and you will be paying less money. Mm-hmm. You are saving yourself money. Mm-hmm. So it is very important that you do that. And we'll have an example of that in a bit. A very small example. So this is the debt coffee cup metaphor. I don't know. I think I first heard it explained this way by a YouTuber named Atrioc. But he goes over some financial stuff and talks just a lot of different stuff. But basically, all of the companies, especially when it comes to debt, are trying to fill if your coffee cup is this cup, it is your capacity to hold debt, and the payments are what you constantly make. They're trying to pour in as much coffee all the way up to the tippy top, right up until it overflows, to where you can constantly make these payments, but you can never actually pay them off, basically. And that's how they make a shitload of money, is when they do that. If they get to somebody who is just not that well off, and they can get them in enough debt to where they're constantly just basically having to just make the payment effectively, and taking forever to pay down the principal, if ever. By the way, the principal is the initial loan amount. So if you had a $10,000 loan, $10,000 is the principal, and then $10,000, at 5% is $10,000 and $10,500. It would be the total amount because after the interest is added, and then you pay down the interest first and then the principal. It's a whole thing, but you want to pay it down as fast as possible. They're trying to put you in they're trying to fill your cup to where it's constantly just about to where it's going to overflow, but it's not going to. It sucks. And that's why you don't want to be in debt. You don't want to get stuck in that trap. Now, what the fuck is an interest rate? We're going to talk about it. We kind of already talked about it, to be honest. But with loans, generally speaking, there's basically the reason why you have the particular interest rate you have is basically they take a bunch of stats about you and determine the risk that you have for not paying it back. And the more broke you are, the less likely you are to pay it back, so they charge you a higher interest rate, which is kind of a self-feeding cycle, which super extra sucks, which is why it's important to have good credit scores and stuff, because it will mean you pay lower interest rate, which, as you learned, you pay less money. You want to pay less money. Anyways, but yeah, if you're less risky, they can afford to charge you a lower interest rate because it is more likely you are going to repay it in full and that they will get their money back. And then interest rate on money you invested is the risk of you getting the full amount back. AKA, there is generally broken into 3 categories of bonds, stocks, and just holding money. The higher returns are going to have higher risk. So stocks will have higher returns and higher return rates, but they also could possibly go to zero. That is a distinct possibility. That's why it's gambling, basically. But lower risk, you're just not going to get the same money back. Or you're not going to have the same return rate. All right, continuing on debt bad interest rates, and this is why it pays to have a good credit score and just generally pay off your debts, is the rates can get kind of insane. 20 to 36%. I just did some quick Google searching, so take it with a grain of salt, but point being, it's a lot higher than 6 to 14%. That is absolutely wild. Just think about the differential there is crazy. You could, now this is obviously on the extreme ends, but you could be paying up to 30% more on everything. Or on the particular loan, I suppose. But yeah, the credit card interest rates do tend to be pretty high, and that's why it's very important that you pay these off constantly. Now, there is one caveat to debt bad, is that investing in yourself. So going into debt for an education can be good. You do still need to risk assess and determine if the payoff's going to be worth it, and if you're actually getting what you want out of education. if it's more like, but generally speaking, getting an education increases your return by higher pay significantly. So, it's not as bad if you're investing in yourself in particular, but just investing in general. So if it is for investments like stocks or whatever, you are what's called highly leveraged, which just means that basically if it goes down, you're extra fucked. So yeah, generally speaking, just that bad. We will talk about ways to get rid of debt. Ideally. Anyways, name a type of debt that cannot be dismissed via bankruptcy. So one of the notable things about the US of A is that you can actually have several types of debt dismissed via bankruptcy, because basically you're saying, I'm totally broke, you take all my shit, and then once there's no more left to take, my debts just go away. And they have to, there's a whole legal system of, them determining what is the most prioritized stuff that you are legally required to pay off, and then, when you run out of stuff to sell, and you have nothing to sell, and you have no money, they can't take any more from you. And I shouldn't say most, but a fair amount of different kind of debt will be dismissed. Don't go into bankruptcy to dismiss your debts, by the way. That's not the solution. But anywho, name a type of debt that cannot be dismissed via bankruptcy. There's one in particular I'm thinking of because it's the one that makes sense, unfortunately, but is just something you can't dismiss. There are several. I Google searched it. Raise your hand if you have an answer, potentially. That's a shrug from John. Gretchen?
Credit card debt?
No. All right.
Gambling.
No, definitely not. That feels like it would be the most dismissible. I don't know that for a fact, but that feels like definitely very dismissible. Anywho. Answer, child support, alimony, and student loans. The main one I was thinking of is student loans, because you can't give back the knowledge you got. There's no way, you just have that knowledge now. There's they can't take that from you, and you paid for it, or if you didn't pay for it, you shouldn't have it. So that's the reasoning of why. It's still kind of screwed because, student loans are insane right now. So I don't love it, but there is an actual reasoning behind why you can't dismiss student loans. It is because, you can't, the knowledge is with you now. And then obviously child support and alimony, that kind of just makes sense. Don't want to incentivize bad things like that. Anywho. Now, here we have an example loan. This is just why you want to pay things off faster. So here we have just literally the default numbers that they put in, I just grabbed. So there's plenty of loan calculators on the internet you can use that will do this exact thing, and it will show you exactly why you want to pay off debts as fast as possible. So if we have a loan of $10,000 and the minimum monthly payment is $800, but we have a maximum of $1,200, and the annual interest rate is 5%. I know I just said a lot of numbers, but just know these are all fake numbers. Point being is that you can pay only $800 each month, or you could pay up to $1,200. If you only pay the $800 each month, your total interest will be $444.88, almost $445. If you pay the maximum amount, aka you pay it down, you will pay almost $145 less. You will pay only $302 or almost $303 in interest. This is significant, and the larger the number on the principal, the beginning balance of loan, and the larger the interest rate, the bigger the savings, the faster you pay it off. So that is why you are just straight up saving money if you can afford to pay down the maximum monthly payments as opposed to the minimum monthly payments. All right, the 4 horsemen of where money go. So we've got stock/ownership and stuff, bonds, money, and then assets. So stocks, I've got an example chart here. The average return rate, as they're showing, depending on whether you use arithmetic or geometric average, to be honest, I don't even remember what the difference between those two is. The point being, 7.1 to 8.6% on the stock market, on average, held long term. So that is why invest in stock market. Pretty good return. This is for the S&P from 1872 to 2024. But point being is that it returns roughly, 7 to 8%, generally speaking. In some years it will be really good, and some years you will be in an economic crisis where it will be really bad, and that's why this is a long-term investment and not short-term. You should not even be thinking about taking money out of stocks unless it's literally crash stock that is going to zero. But in which case you probably shouldn't have gotten that stock, individual stock. You probably shouldn't do it in individual stocks. That is just gambling. Bonds, these are basically the government says you pay us money now and we pay you money over time, but we pay you more money. That's what a bond is. And then if you just hold on the money, it will unfortunately effectively deteriorate because of inflation. That's but you still do want to have some just money. And then assets like rare Magic the Gathering cards. Yeah, those, a house, that kind of stuff. These vary super wildly depending on what kind of assets, so I'm not even really going to go into it. But point being that the stocks and ownership are definitely typically speaking, the most risky. They will fluctuate wildly depending on the year and depending on the economic state. Bonds are pretty safe, but it depends on how responsible the company or the government that you're buying the bond of is. Generally speaking, for a long time, bonds have been pretty safe for the U.S., but it's getting a little dicey because the U.S. debt is kind of insane right now. So bond rates have actually gone up quite a bit recently, to my knowledge. And then money, you will lose money by just holding money because of how inflation works. Unfortunately, your dollar is worth a little less every year because of inflation. And then assets, again, fluctuates wildly. Rare cards, houses, cars, etc. I'm not even going to go into it because I really don't know a whole lot about assets. That much. And broke, how I make money. If in your debt, pay off your debt first. Just do it. Trust me, or trust literally anyone on the internet who's ever given any amount of financial advice or something, because they will pretty much all tell you to do that.
Dave Ramsey.
What? What?
Have you heard of Dave? You haven't heard of Dave Ramsey?
No, I haven't heard of Dave Ramsey. Please explain.
He's a guy who's basically like, oh, I'm a genius. I've written all these books on money, and he basically has two principles: pay off your debt, own property.
Yeah.
That's such a I'm well off and don't realize how well off I am strategy of
it's like, oh well, how do you make money? Oh well, just have had
money.
several houses.
That is great if you don't have money, but obviously sucks. So if you're broke, obviously you don't have the luxury of just owning property or buying property. But so the first thing that I think is important about paying off your debt is that you need to identify why you are in debt. For some people, that's going to be really obvious, and for some people, you're having to do a little thinking and think about what you're spending on and if it's really worth it, or typical budgeting stuff, and it's going to be kind of difficult. But so the two ways, obviously, there's you can either get paid more or you can spend less. It's just that simple. I don't know how to say it. It actually is just that simple.
My mom told me just make more money.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
let me go do that.
Yeah. So the problem is that both of these suck. The cutting expensive sucks because you get less stuff. Nobody likes having less stuff. No, oh man, I really wish I had less stuff. Said no one fucking ever. Okay, nobody has ever thought that really. Aside from billionaires who will claim they want less stuff, but then will proceed to buy more stuff. So there's those guys, but. And then, so increasing your own pay, this is obviously very difficult and not always entirely within your control, whether this be working, trying to get a promotion, or if this is, picking up a side hustle or a gig or whatever, right? Very difficult, it's...
Or gambling
it's
on Magic cards.
Don't gamble! Typically speaking, there's two methods for, and just because, again, logically, there's only two methods for paying off debts. So there's what they call a snowball method, which is you start with the smallest amount of debt that you have and you pay that off first because you want to get the snowball rolling. Once you've got one snowball, once you start rolling the snowball, it gets bigger and bigger and it kind of takes care of itself because once you paid off the first debt, then you no longer have that interest rate picking at your total money. And then you have more money to put towards the next debt and then more money to put towards the next debt until finally all your debt is away. Now, there's also the avalanche method. This is a little tougher mentally for people to do, but this is paying down your biggest debt first. So I forget if this had to do with it's pretty important, but the interest rate or the principal amount. But typically speaking, I would just advise, trying to pay down the highest interest rate one because that is the one you're losing the most money on usually. The problem is it depends on the principal amount and the interest rate. So you may have a high interest rate on a smaller amount, or versus a lower interest rate on a very large amount. They're going to accrue at maybe similar values. But you want to typically, this is basically going after the biggest debt. I'm going to tackle the biggest thing so that once that's gone, it's easy to knock down the rest of them, basically. And also, you save the most amount of money going after, I think, it kind of doesn't really matter. The point is to get rid of the debt in its entirety eventually. It just, you either start at the top or start at the bottom, have a method. Pick one and stick to it, right? That's the best, that's basically a lot of financial stuff, is just pick a method and stick to it. Hold yourself to it. Mm-hmm. You must hold yourself to it, even when it's difficult. Even when your brain says, yeah, but I could buy that thing. I want to buy that thing. It's just, you got to have a method to your madness. That's why writing it down is really helpful, because it forces you to keep track of stuff. And then, like I talked about earlier, rainy day funds. That way you're not forced into debt suddenly, because accidents do happen. You can't control them. Not entirely, at least, right? That's why they're called accidents. So that's why you want to have a rainy day fund, because that way you can just avoid being in debt in the first place. But yeah, helpful tips for cutting expenses. Like I said, track the money you spend. Very, very, very important. Number one thing, in my opinion. Before making purchases, compare price and evaluate your desire for said thing. I do this a lot. So, and you gotta find a happy medium, because if you're constantly worrying about this, that's also not good for mental health. But you really gotta think about whether or not you want a thing. It's the companies have perfected ways to try and separate you from your money. They will put in video games is the one I'm most familiar with, but they will put in separate currencies so that it doesn't feel like you're spending as much. They'll put it in separate amounts so it doesn't feel like as much. They'll make you gamble for it so it doesn't feel like as much. They will have all these different methods that will make it seem like you're spending less. And so just, you really got to think about it like, it's a personal example. I look at the $100 package in a gacha game and I go, it's so valuable, because I get double the amount, because your first purchase or whatever, you get double the amount. And then I you calculate, $100 worth of pulls, even at the double rate, gives me basically the amount of pulls equivalent to a little more than hitting the 50-50. And you go, would I really spend $100 to 50-50 getting a new character in a game? Do I really want to spend that money? And then I kind of go yeah, maybe not. Or you look at a skin and you're like, it's only this many points. And then it's $25. And then it's just take a step back, sleep on it. Am I really gonna pay $60 for a skin? Is pixels. Do I really want that? And maybe you do. And if you have the money, go for it, right? But just make sure you're evaluating. Plan/find cheaper alternatives. Maybe the super expensive skin isn't all that great. Maybe there's a skin that's half the price, and you just kind of want a different look, and you like that look. Go for it. You can find cheaper alternatives, and sometimes when you're looking for cheaper alternatives, you'll find a cool new hobby that you like, and you'll get into that. So that's just something to think about. And then remove/lower temptation occurrences. This is basically if you notice that when, for example, again in my example, that when I see or when I play a certain game, they have advertisements for something I'd like to purchase, then playing that game less will naturally remove that temptation to spend that money, right? And this occurs all over the place. Going to the store, if you walk down the snack aisle and you notice there's a sale on something and you're more tempted to spend on that snack because you saw that it was on sale, that's a good way to start losing money, right? Just little stuff like that, trying to reduce the amount that you are walking by things you are tempted to spend on. And then obviously, if you have an addiction, you gotta stop. Is gonna ruin your finances. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't be me. Don't have a gacha game addiction. Don't do it. I don't spend a ludicrous amount, but I do spend probably more than I realistically need to. That's for sure. I could totally be free to play. They're free to play games, but anywho. And then lastly, fuck the Joneses. If you heard the phrase keeping up with the Joneses, this is just a term for lifestyle creep. Basically, people, when they make more money, are often tempted to spend more money because, I gotta have that new thing that the Joneses got. They got this new TV. I want a new TV. And it's very easy trap to fall into. Fuck the Joneses. Who cares what the Joneses got? if you're happy with what you got, be happy with what you got. You don't need the new TV. You know, just it don't matter. Excuse me?
Nice TV though.
You say that as it just...
That's not the TV's fault.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Okay. But it was just funny, the timing of that. And then, like I said before, don't be terrified of spending, though. Do what makes you happy to some degree. Just, bear in mind what you're actually spending.
Dust.
Yeah, so that was there. I put it there because you want to evaluate if you're really going to enjoy it or if you're just going to forget about it. Because there have been so many things that I have purchased, and I've just been like, damn, and I will literally forget that I have it. And, that's not a great feeling when you're like, oh, I did spend money on that, and I either regret having it, or I didn't even remember I had it, or I just don't look at it all that often. And depending on the amount money you spend on it, maybe it's not a big deal. You spend $5, $10 on something like that, who cares, right? But you spend $60, $100 on something like that, and you go, ooh, I really spent $100 on that. So just bear that in mind, that, give some time to sit on it. But generally speaking, my view is that humans, aka your friends, your family, and experiences with those people,
and hopefully you,
and hopefully me, are generally worth it. Don't be a friend to spend money to go out bowling with your friends. I'd say that's a valuable experience, even if you forget about it. It's just the time you spend with friends and family. To me, that's kind of the point of life. And we'll hit that on the second to last slide too. Tips for increasing compensation. This sucks. Have more money. Invest in yourself, education, to get a higher paying job. You really gotta evaluate if that education will actually lead to a higher paying job, but this is one method. And part of going to school is you can make social connections that could potentially be, if you get friendly with your bosses or whatever, they can be people who reference you in the future to get a higher paying job somewhere else. You'd be surprised by how kind some people can be. Now this one sucks because it's kind of just what has taken over our culture and what a lot of people are getting by on, but picking up a side hustle. If you really need the money, you can pick up some sort of side hustle to try and make more money, whether that's, being an Uber Eats delivery person or whatever. There's a lot of different side hustles out there. You can try and make it on a YouTube channel or something. There's various different ways you can try and make more money that are very low cost input and can make you some extra money on the side. But again, all of these are very difficult. It's a lot of work to do any of these, and it's gonna suck. And what I've got here on the right is this phrase that's appeared in Chinese culture. If you think our capitalism is bad, there is insane. It's similar level, bad for different reasons, right? But they have what they call a 996 culture. 9 hours a day. Or was it? Hold on, not 9 hours a day. I forget what it was. Was it 9 hours a day? It was basically, it's 6 days a week with lots of hours of working instead of, taking care of yourself or sleeping. And it's just kind of a culture they have over there that's kind of a struggle for people to get by, and people literally die of stress over this stuff. Japan has a similar issue. It's just kind of a cultural thing that is not uncommon in Eastern cultures, and is it does have presence in Western cultures as well. Just depends on where you're at. Pop quiz: fill in the blank. When you are younger, you should invest in blank stuff, and when you are older, you should invest in blank stuff. Raise your hand if you have the answer. Are we drawing a blank here?
My brain's saying, when you're younger, invest in cheaper stuff, and when you're older, invest in more expensive stuff.
So no, this is invest, not purchases. That should be a hint. I know it's kind of generic, but you'll get it when the answer pops up if you don't get it.
When you're younger, you should invest in smaller stuff. And when you're older, you should invest in bigger stuff.
Oh my goodness. Well, if I translate it into the terms I'm thinking of, unfortunately you guys are going in the reverse direction. When you're younger, you want to invest in riskier stuff, aka bigger bets, because you have time to recover. Ultimately, life is a long game. You're in a marathon, not a sprint. So you can afford when you're younger to go for riskier stuff because riskier stuff has high return.
Yeah, aka smaller stuff.
That's not smaller. That is bigger.
Well, no, because bigger things are less risky. Too big to fail is literally an expression.
John, that's not an expression because it was that risky. It wasn't that it was safe. It was so enveloped in the system to where when it failed, it would have taken down the entire system itself. Like,
my understanding was that they had so much money that they literally could not fail.
No, the reason... So basically, this came from the 2007-2008 financial crisis. It was the banks... The reason why they were considered too big to fail is because if you let the banks fail, they have everyone's money. So what happens if they go out of business?
Okay, well, yeah.
Nobody has money.
I understand that. But regardless, the bigger you are, the more money you have, the less likely you are to fail.
So you're saying if you invest in people with more money, that you are safer? Or that is riskier?
Yeah, safer.
That is safer. If you
invest in someone who has not a lot of money, they don't have...
Not entirely true. There are people with lots of money that are not very good and take really risky bets. That is just a fact.
That does exist, yeah.
Like, also, again, you were saying bigger and smaller. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you're trying to argue for the point, but I'm not giving you a point based off that. But point being is that when you're younger, you have time to recover, is the big thing. When you're older, if you get hit hard by a downturn, you won't have time to recover. You could just be broke. You won't have as much money. You can't make money because you're old and you can't necessarily work if you're in retirement, right? Or you're, it's just you want to, generally speaking, invest in safer stuff when you get older, as a general principle.
I still think I'm right.
Okay.
Look, if someone doesn't have any money and they're trying to, for example, like start up a restaurant and they have to like take out a loan,
mm-hmm.
They're small, that's risky.
Yeah, that's true. The problem is
if you're investing in a company who is like trying to branch out, they already have a successful company. I feel like that's
I see.
risky.
Okay, I see your point, but I'm still not going to give that to you.
Well, I think you're wrong, and that's fine.
Okay. All right. So now many people worry who don't want to get into the stock market but what if the stock market crashes though? Because they mostly see headlines about how the stock market is crashing and and how it has crashed in the past. So here is a chart of the three major indexes: the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, and the Nasdaq. You'll notice that if you look over time, up and to the right, that's just how it works. And even the biggest downturns, they recover within like a decade or so. And especially, depending on when you invest. And this is the point of when I talked about investing for the long term, because if you invest here, it will suck here, and then 3 years later, it will not suck because you will have made money, right? So that is why, and it's just kind of over time, even the biggest downturns, and you notice some notable ones, the dot-com bubble here, 2000, drops like a tank, doesn't get back till, again, another financial crisis. This was a weird time, the 2007 financial crisis. But then, lo and behold, 2013-ish, it's back where it was before the 2007 or 2008 financial crisis, and then we have rocketed up continuously, right? And this is the COVID dip. Right, but point being, and you'll see it across, and it varies depending on the index because they track different things, but over time, you will make money on stock market. Investment tidbits. Easiest invest to simply pretend the money you've set aside for investment doesn't exist. Don't even think about it. You should not be checking the stocks daily. That is just gambling, as we talked about. Low-cost index funds, these are like the S&P. Oh, I gotta go back. Low-cost index funds are basically stuff like the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq they charge you a very low fee to invest in them, and they just kind of go up over time. They track a lot of different things. There's like the S&P 500 is like the 500 largest companies. Right now, it's unusually concentrated at the top of the S&P 500, like the top 8 or 10 companies or whatever. But generally speaking, they track a lot of different companies. So these are never going to hit zero, right? You're never going to totally bottom out on these, and over time, they'll go up and to the right. And also, they just don't cost a lot. You want to not have to spend that much money on management fees and stuff. Diversity across sectors, assets, and regions. So sectors is like investing in the tech industries versus investing in the toilet paper industry, right? they're different sectors, and diversity across them means that you're less likely to hit zero. Asset classes would just mean like housing versus magic cards versus whatever, right? And then regions don't invest solely in the U.S. You should probably, if you have the money to, spread out across the U.S., Europe, China less so, because when the government controls everything, it's a little dicey in terms of investing. But generally speaking, you want to diversify across regions, because that way, if there's a region-specific downturn, you won't get hit as hard. A lack of diversity is a good way to go into debt or to go to zero. It's just, you want to be diversified. And then invest in yourself, classes like I mentioned earlier. Just don't be afraid to invest in your own education. It's important. And then, finally, or second to last, long-term, not short-term, we already talked about that. Last, you're not the guy. If you know this meme, God bless you. It's a great meme. This is me slapping the shit out of you for thinking you're the guy, okay? You're not the guy. You're not the finance guy. And even the finance guy is not the guy, because he's an idiot and has crashed multiple times. So, just be safe. Not safe, but invest, simply. Not day trades, not specific stocks like SpaceX or something dumb like that. All right, pop quiz, just because it's silly. What's the name of the movie The Guy is from? Times 2 points if you get the full name of the movie. Raise your hand if you have the answer.
I should know this.
Nothing for Gretchen?
I should know this one.
John, I'll give you 15 seconds. 1, 2.
I'll just throw out a guess. Is it Austin Powers?
It is not.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Spy Kids 3D Game Over.
Spy Kids. I knew it had something to do with kids.
It felt Spy Kids.
It was Spy Kids. It was the third movie specifically. Great movie. Hilarious scene with the guy. That is one of my favorite scenes. It's pretty janky because it is a very old movie, but I enjoyed it as a kid. And the guy scene is forever stuck in my head. You're not the guy. I'm the guy. Guy walks in, gets zapped, loses all of his lives, I should say. Spoiler for like a 17, 20-year-old movie, by the way. But yeah, Spy Kids 3D Game Over. Alright, this is something I learned about fairly recently after talking with my mom. This is pre-tax versus post-tax stuff, 401k versus Roth. So 401k contributions lower your taxable income, aka when you contribute towards your 401k, it lowers the amount of taxes you have to pay. That's why it's good. It's you basically get tax discount. Roth is you pay tax on the amount initially, but then it grows tax-free and takes out tax-free from my quick Google searching. Traditional is the 401k thing I said where you pay the tax or traditional is when you pay the tax when you take it out later. And then, if possible, from what my mom told me, again, not financial advisor, but if possible, when you're lower earnings, you want to put more in your Roth than your 401k. Because the tax savings are not as much, because you're not being taxed as much, is my understanding. And if you're earning more money, it's the reverse, because then you can get more tax deductions effectively by contributing to your 401k. Keep your wallet safe. Talked about this earlier. I put a few funny examples on. Companies will do literally anything to separate you from your money. So, a few different tactics here. So, obviously we have debt, but it's a different name. It's called Buy Now, Pay Later. It's Klarna. Don't worry, guys. Don't regulate us like it's debt. It's not debt. It's just the exact definition of debt. Trust me. Trust me, bro. I hate that they get away with this shit. And you'll notice this funny Steam sale is that this game is weirdly $100. So... I was looking at this, and this game has fluctuated in price, and they just basically, they'll increase the base price, which is weird that they can do that. I don't know why Steam allows this, but they can increase the base price and then have a higher percentage discount for the same price. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why it's allowed on Steam. It kind of peeves me, but the actual base price of this game is $45, $60 or something, but they jack it up to 100% and then say it's an 80% discount for a $20, which it's not even worth that much. Then we have Arknight's Enfield. This sword, $1. Perfect fit for the player character. It's to get you, because there's basically studies done that once you spent a little money, like any amount of money on something, you are more likely to be okay with spending more money on it. Mm-hmm. So little starter packages like that absolutely debate you in to spend more in the future. And just be aware of that and be wary of it. And then here we have Nikkei, which has done irreparable damage to the cosmetic skin selling industry for games, because this is a gacha skin. It costs $60 if you buy the cheapest package to guarantee it. But you'll notice you literally cannot get it on the first 5 draws, so they give you typically like 1 pull for free. So you literally can't get it at all. And even when you can get it, it's a 0.05% rate to get it. So you could gamble and get it early. Sort of. But you probably won't. And you'll probably just spend $60 for some JPEGs and pixels and voice lines. That's it. So yeah. And then you'll notice here the pricing schema is kind of scammy too, because if you buy enough to get... Basically, all these max out at the amount to guarantee. But if you buy in the largest quantities, it will be cheaper. So if you buy all of them to where you will guarantee getting it at the largest package, you will spend $60. But if you try and do it incrementally for one thing each individually, this will cost you up to $72. So you're incentivized to just buy the whole $60 thing, even if you get it, and then even if you get it early, it doesn't matter. So just kind of scummy. It's the one thing I really don't like about Nikkei, is that their skin selling practices are very much trying to separate you from your money. All right. And then lastly, I wanted to end on like a better note of the purpose of money, ladies and gentlemen, is to live a good life. We don't try not to get too caught up in the money. Obviously, it's important, but you know, we're here to live a good life, to maybe have a significant other and kids, to be good friends and family. So don't be so cheap as to hurt other people, but also don't be so negligent about your finances that you can't afford to help other people. If you can't take care of yourself, it's going to be a struggle to help other people. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. We're all human. And you can't control everything. Don't be Mr. fucking Musk here. Fun fact, he's got like fucking 14 kids. He's divorced twice. Whatever. He has lost the plot. He doesn't understand. He just wants to make number go up. Okay?
It's bad that I thought it was Brendan Lee Mulligan for a split second.
I just rotated him upside down.
It kind of looks like it.
It does. I hate that you're kind of right. But,
which is funny because he hates Elon.
Yeah, I think at one point I might have had respect for this guy. It's definitely disappeared.
There was a period of time where we thought he was our meme representative in the mainstream.
Yeah.
And then that time has passed.
Yeah. I mean, there was at one point he was wearing anime shirts and was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then you learn more about him and you're like, oh, I don't like this guy. Oh, he was just doing that as a marketing stunt because he saw the stock bump when he did. Oh, he got 14 kids. He's... You know, and then there's other billionaires that are like, I don't know that humans should survive. And you're just kind of like, they don't get it, you know? So try not to go crazy over money. Especially when you get into higher amounts of money, people, for some reason, just lose their fucking minds over it. So yeah, don't do that. Probably not an issue for anybody watching this or listening to this, so I wouldn't worry about it too much, but yeah. Live a good life, man. That's what it's about. And lastly, do we have any questions for the presenter? The dumbass presenter that is I, Monopoly Man. Or are we just tired and we just should round it out? You're looking at me like you're tired and we should just round it out. So John, you have won. I think it was like 1.5 points to 0. Congratulations.
I had a quarter.
Sorry, quarter point. That's right.
Give her due
I
credit.
had a quarter.
She had a quarter point. That is right. And I don't know, next week we'll be presented with whatever John gives us. I don't know how long this took, but yeah, that is my presentation on money and how to money. Thank you. I worked sort of hard on it. I tried. That's going to do it for us this week. We'll see you next week on Leave Your Brain at the Door. I think I forgot to say that at the beginning. John will be hosting.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.